Hello everyone and welcome to my CSU channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Todd Chrisley admits intentionally making staff miserable in prison. Since his presidential pardon and release from prison, Todd and Julie Chrisley have opened up about their time behind bars. Recently, Todd shared a bit of an agenda he had when it came to dealing with the prison staff. This also comes out after Julie talked about an incident in which she got into conflict with a service worker during her time in prison. Todd and Julie talked about their time in prison during a recent podcast appearance. Todd and Julie Chrisley became known to audiences thanks to their USA Network series, Chrisley Knows Best. In 2022, however, the two were convicted to a combined 15 years in prison thanks to charges including bank fraud and tax evasion. Julie was sentenced to 7 years at the Federal Medical Center in Lexington, while Todd was set to spend a 12-year sentence at the federal prison camp in Pensacola. Around 2 years into their sentence, however, the two received an early release thanks to a presidential pardon from President Donald Trump. With their release, Todd and Julie have been sharing their story with fans through various outlets. The two recently made an appearance on their daughter, Savannah's Unlocked podcast. Opening up, Todd claimed that he rarely got into conflict with the other inmates. However, there was another group that he shared he didn't get along with. According to Todd, he made his presence known to the prison staff. The Chrisley Knows Best star shared, "I told staff off. I told CEOs, correctional officers, and staff off." Todd teased why he felt Julie didn't get into many altercations with staff. For her part, Julie felt that she didn't have as many issues with staff. Todd attributed this to her up there being Miss Pollyanna while in Lexington. However, Julie did have some issues in prison, previously recounting an incident where she was locked in a cafeteria by a food service worker and correctional officer. Julie shared, "He was just a miserable human being. He really was," with Todd adding, "They all are." She also confirmed that the officer has since retired. Todd continued to share his dislike for the staff. Concerning the service worker in Julie's story, he shared, "I would have put a BP-8 on his app," referring to an administrative complaint. He continued, "I was surrounded by miserable human beings, and every day, I got up and it was my sole intent to make their life even more miserable because they were there to make our lives miserable." In a jaw-dropping admission that's left fans stunned and critics fuming, Todd Chrisley, the embattled patriarch of Chrisley Knows Best, is breaking his silence with raw honesty about his past behavior, confessing that he deliberately made his staff miserable. The revelation came in an unfiltered, soul-bearing letter leaked from the federal prison, where Todd is currently serving his sentence for bank fraud and tax evasion. The letter, addressed to an unnamed confidant and authenticated by sources close to the family, is both shocking and oddly introspective, offering a glimpse into the darker side of the Southern reality star's reign at the height of his fame. "I liked being in control," Todd wrote. "I needed to feel like every decision, every move, every breath that happened under my roof, both at home and at the office, came with my stamp of approval. And I'll admit now, I wasn't just tough, I was cruel. I intentionally made people uncomfortable so they wouldn't cross me." The stunning confession paints a very different picture from the polished, hyper-controlling, yet seemingly lovable dad that audiences saw on TV. Behind the lavish Nashville mansion, matching outfits, and signature one-liners was a man determined to break down those around him to ensure loyalty through fear. "I created an environment where people walked on eggshells," the letter continues, "and that's exactly how I liked it." Creating a culture of fear, former staff members, who previously hinted at Todd's impossible expectations, are now coming forward with renewed purpose. One ex-assistant who worked closely with the Chrisleys for 3 years recalls what she calls a high-stakes pressure cooker, where mistakes were punished not with correction, but humiliation. Once, I brought him the wrong latte. Just one time, she recalls. He called a meeting with 3 other staff members, made me explain myself like I was a child, and then told me I was 1 iced coffee away from the unemployment line. And I stayed. That's the craziest part. I stayed. Another staffer detailed how Todd would monitor employees' social media and even their off-hours movements. He'd post a picture from dinner, and the next day he'd bring it up. Was that really the best use of your night, when there were invoices sitting on your desk? The atmosphere became so oppressive that some staff reportedly signed NDAs not only to protect show secrets, but to prevent them from speaking about the culture of psychological control, narcissism, and regret. Though Todd never explicitly used the word narcissist in his letter, many experts are quick to point out the behavioral patterns. He was performing classic narcissistic manipulation, says one former producer of Chrisley Knows Best, who has since moved on to work on other reality projects. He isolated people emotionally, then built a reality where he was the only one who could save them from failure. And it worked for years. Now, sitting behind bars with far less control and no cameras to manipulate, Todd seems to be reckoning with the fallout. I thought fear kept people loyal, he wrote, but fear just kept them quiet. He goes on to admit that his desire for total control may have helped build an empire, but it also played a key role in its collapse. The harder I tried to squeeze, the more it all slipped through my fingers, he says. The toll on family. While most of Todd's confessions are focused on staff and business relationships, there's an undeniable undertone that the same tactics may have seeped into his family life, especially when cameras were rolling. There were moments even Julie would look at me like she didn't recognize who I'd become, Todd writes of his wife, who is serving her own prison sentence. And our kids, God bless them, they saw more than I ever realized. Fans have long speculated about the emotional toll the show took on the Chrisley children, especially Chase and Savannah, who were often thrust into the spotlight in uncomfortable situations for entertainment value. Savannah, now raising her younger brother Grayson and niece Chloe in her parents' absence, has remained publicly supportive of her father, but hinted in recent interviews that their family dynamic was far more complex than TV ever revealed. He's a complicated man, she said on her podcast, but he's my dad. I love him, even when I don't always like everything he's done. Seeking redemption? The question now is, what comes next? Todd's apparent awakening comes as both he and Julie fight for early release, appealing their convictions and attempting to reclaim some semblance of their old lives. But whether fans or former employees will welcome them back with open arms remains to be seen. Prison strips away the filters, Todd wrote. You're left with yourself, your past, and the consequences. And let me tell you, facing the truth is harder than any sentence a judge can hand down. He ends the letter with a surprising note of humility. I used to believe people respected me because I was powerful. Now I realize the only thing worth earning is trust. And I broke it. The public reacts. Social media exploded as excerpts from the letter began to circulate. While some longtime fans expressed disappointment, others were more empathetic, calling it a necessary first step toward redemption. Honestly, I appreciate the honesty, one fan tweeted. Too many people in reality TV never admit fault. Todd's owning it, finally. Others were far less forgiving. He didn't just ruin careers, he traumatized people, wrote one former intern in a now viral TikTok video. No confession erases that. Final thoughts. Todd Chrisley's stunning admission is likely to spark ongoing debate. Is this the first chapter in a true redemption story, or simply another performance from a master manipulator? Either way, the letter signals a major turning point in the Chrisley saga, one where raw truth is finally stepping out from behind the glossy facade of TV perfection.